1 year. One crazy year. I mean, do you ever just think of yourself from 1 year ago and think, what would I say to that person? I mean, we had no idea what was coming. And it's been a year like none of us have ever experienced. Of course, there's been the trauma, the tragedy, the loss of life, the disappointment. But then there's been the weird things like the elbow bumping mates and the air hugs and just weird things like national debates over toilet paper. I mean, what has this life become? And it feels now like there's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. And so it's this moment for us to kind of look back and look forward and to think like, what can we learn from all of this? I think one of the biggest things we learned was just how fragile life really is. We thought we had control, didn't we? That we could predict the future, we could plan for the future, we knew what was coming. But we discovered that in a blink of an eye, everything can just be taken. The rug can be pulled from under our feet. And it leads us to ask this question: what are we building our lives on? Like as we kind of stop now and we see that this season's kind of coming to an end and we look to the future, we have this opportunity to think, okay, what am I gonna build my new normal on? What are my foundations? Like with any building project, we say to ourselves, what are our foundations? What is the foundation for our peace, for our hope, for our confidence? Perhaps for you, you'd say, well, for me, my life right now is built on this idea that the virus is going to go, that the pandemic is going to come to an end, that death rates will drop, infections will drop, and then everything will be okay. And I hope it is. But what if? What if there's a new variant? Or even, God forbid, what if there's a new virus altogether, one that impacts us and affects us in far more devastating ways than the one we've just experienced? Then what? Then what happens to our confidence? What happens to those foundations? Maybe for you, you're like, well, for me, actually, I know I'm okay when I've got money coming in and a roof over my head. Then I'm fine. That for me is my foundation. But what if the economy doesn't bounce back? What if actually we find that there's more job losses, maybe a housing market crash, that jobs we thought were secure really weren't? Then what happens to our hope, our confidence, our peace? Because if we're going to build futures, if we're going to build lives that have a lasting and a permanent happiness and a peace, then surely those things need to be built on permanent foundations, things that can't be just crumbled and broken and taken away. Surely if we want to have lives that have permanent and lasting peace and happiness and joy, then they need to be built on something that's safe and solid and secure.
Life is incredible. On average, we live for 32,850 days. That's 47 million minutes. Learning, growing, losing, and exploring. This life we live is so fragile. We have questions like, how did I get here? How did it all start? What happens after I die? Am I enough? Jim Carrey once said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. We end up filling our lives with things, money, and distractions, numbing down these important life questions with binge-worthy box sets and just-eat banquets. But what if we stopped, paused even, to ask ourselves, what am I really living for? Is the ground I'm building my life on really that indestructible? Where do I find my hope? Freddie Mercury once said, you can have everything in the world and still be the loneliest man. And that's the most bitter type of loneliness. Success has brought me world idolization and millions of pounds, but it's prevented me from having the one thing we all need, a loving, ongoing relationship.
It's Easter time, and for many of us, that means little more than a good excuse to eat plenty of egg-shaped chocolates. And the Easter events themselves that happened 2,000 years ago, rightly, a lot of us just think, well, I don't understand how that relates to me today, and that's fair enough. But what if we looked a little bit closer? What if we actually looked at those historical events? What we see is a people who found themselves in a situation that they didn't ask for and they didn't like. They were crying out against injustice. They were pushing back against things in their lives that they found oppressive and restrictive. They were desperate, they were hungry for a return to normality. That sound maybe a bit more relatable? A bit more familiar from the past year? See, the people of Israel had been invaded by the Roman army. This army that had attacked them and taken over. And they'd put in heavy taxation and restrictions. And the people wanted freedom. It's what we all want, isn't it? Freedom. It's in our DNA. It's why the past year has been so difficult, because we've lost some of our freedoms. And then we look at the main character in the story, Jesus. Jesus, who claimed to be God as man on earth. And he said that his purpose, his mission, was to bring freedom, to set the captives free. But what he came to bring freedom from and freedom for was a lot different than what the people had asked for. See, they wanted this powerful political leader, maybe even a warrior, to defeat the Romans. But what Jesus said, what you need freedom from most is not political oppression or economic instability. Actually, no, he said he came to bring freedom from the biggest enemy that any of us has ever faced. What is it? What's the one thing that none of us has ever been able to conquer in human history? Death. Death. The great enemy. See, the people had said, come on, we just need to have our kind of lives improved. We need to have our finances get better. We just want to have the rest of our lives content and happy and just all okay. But Jesus said, I'm not just going to come to give you a better life, maybe for 10, 20, 30 years. No, Jesus came to say, I'm going to give you a glorious life for all eternity. And what about us now? Here in 2021, what do we think we need most? Scientific breakthrough, greater technology, improved relationships, a healed political system, hey, maybe even life on Mars. But maybe what we need most is something different, something far greater. There's that phrase, nothing lasts forever. But what if that's not true? What if death doesn't have to be the end of the story? Well, Jesus came to prove just that. And he didn't come to just say it, but to show it. Jesus was nailed to a cross, crucified, executed, killed. He died, without a shadow of a doubt. He died. But then 3 days later, the most incredible thing happened. He rose again, showing that he had conquered death. And not in some mythical, metaphorical, fairy story sort of way. No, this was a moment in human history. A man who was dead was now alive. And it's why you can't go and visit his body in the tomb, because there is no body, because he's risen. It's why the witnesses of his resurrection, those who saw him after he rose again, refused to deny what they'd seen, even to the point of death. They said, no, we can't deny what we've seen. We'd rather die than say it never happened. It's why right now around the globe, more people are impacted by the resurrection than they ever have been before in human history. See, the Easter story isn't over. Jesus died and rose again, but it's still relevant to us today. See, Jesus knows your name. Those hands that were nailed to a cross are reaching out to you. He knows all about you. He knows the good, the bad, and the really bad, the stuff that you wouldn't want anyone to ever find out about. And the scandal is this: despite knowing everything about you, he loves you. And he says, come come rebuild your life with me. Come and rebuild your future with me. I don't want to just give you life, but I want to give you eternal life. That's Jesus' promise. That's his gift to you. And what's our response? What do we do in response to Jesus' offer? Well, our response is just to believe and to receive it. So you don't have to work hard to earn it. Jesus has already done the hard work that needed doing. His life, death, and resurrection have completed the task. The job is finished. We can live in the goodness of that. We can receive it. That's the Easter story. That's the Easter promise. That is the Easter gift. And can I invite you to do something that's very rare in our modern day life? Can I invite you right now just to pause? Just to stop for a second and slow down and just take stock of everything. There's a lot of stuff that I've thrown at you, a lot of things to process, a lot of things to think through. But for me, this has changed my life, and I really do believe it could change yours too. So just in the moments ahead, why don't we together just pause and reflect and think about that offer of Jesus?
Overcome by fear, and hope seems like a ship that's lost at sea. My enemies on every side, and I'm tempted to run and hide. Your gentle whisper reaches out to me. Peace that holds me when I'm broken, sweet peace that passes understanding. When the whole wide world is crashing down, I fall to my knees and breathe in your peace. Fiery arrows whistling, the terror of the night sets in, but I can feel your angels all around. I am resting underneath the shelter of your mighty wings. Your promises are where my hope is found. You give me peace that holds me when I'm broken, sweet peace that passes understanding. When the whole wide world is crashing down, I fall to my knees and breathe in your peace. I remember who you are. You're the God who's never far. So I will not be afraid, 'cause you always keep me safe in your arms. I remember who you are. You're the God who's never far. So I will not be afraid, 'cause God, you always keep me safe. You give me peace that holds me when I'm broken, sweet peace
It's been 1 year, one crazy year. And right now we have this incredible, unique opportunity to pause and to take stock and to decide, what do I want my life to be all about? How am I going to rebuild going forward? And look, I get it. For a lot of people, when this is all over, you just want it to go back to normal, just to how it always was. But what if there's something different waiting for us, something better? The Easter story isn't over yet. Jesus invites us into it. He invites us to have his life, his eternal life, the gift that can never be shaken and never be taken away.